Good day to all of you. Yesterday we had begun with the essay Of Travel by Francis Bacon, and we had read how Bacon had talked about the benefits of travel and had elaborated upon how travel has great educational value. He had talked about how the youngsters in Bacon's times had been encouraged to go on educational tours so that they would have a first hand experience of the lifestyle, culture, politics, social life, etc., etc., of the place they were visiting and learn firsthand about all these things. Bacon had also talked about maintaining a diary when visiting a foreign land because he believed that there are so many things that are to be observed when one goes to a foreign land, that it is important to make a record of them or to put them down in a diary so that later on a person can refer to and refresh his memory about all those places that he or she had visited. So he said, according to him, maintaining a diary was very important. Now let's move on and I'll quote from the essay. Let diaries therefore be brought in use. The things to be seen and observed are. So he says that diaries are very important because when a person goes abroad or to a foreign land, there are lots of things to be seen and observed. And what are those things which are seen and observed are? He gives a very long list of those things. Number one, he says the courts of princes, especially when they give audience to ambassadors, the courts of justice while they sit and hear causes. So he says that when one goes to a foreign land, uh, especially if it's a monarchy, there are kings and princes and sovereigns, and one gets to see the lifestyle of the kings and princes, the grandeur, the opulence, the splendor of the lifestyle of the kings and the practices which are followed in the courts, the traditions, the rituals, and the elaborate protocol that has to be followed when visiting such high class people. So he is of the opinion that all these things should be recorded in a diary. And number two, he also says that when one visits a foreign land, he goes to see these big palaces, etc., and he also gets to see the royal court and sit in the audience and see how justice is being dispensed. So these are also things that one should note. Number three that he talks about are that while they sit and hear causes, and so of consistories ecclesiastic, I'm quoting, the churches and monasteries with the monuments which are therein extant, the walls and fortifications of cities and towns, and so the heavens and harbours, antiquities and ruins. So then he goes on to say that when one goes to a foreign land, besides visiting the palaces, the courts, one also goes and visits churches, temples, monuments, monasteries. And why do they go to visit these places is to know about the architectural designs and the styles of that period in which they were made. And these designs offer a kind of a visual delight. And when one goes and visits such places, Bacon says it is very important to maintain or to put all those observations in a diary. Besides visiting church, monasteries, royal courts, palaces, he says one also visits the fortresses, the historical places, the city walls, the towers, and uh, these looking at these places itself uh, give these places relate or tell a history of their own, how the places were conquered, invaded, and ransacked and destroyed. So when one goes to visit such places, Bacon is of the opinion that one should put all these uh, observations in the diary. And besides these historical sites and the monuments and the buildings, he says there are many other things also which are of great delight, like libraries, colleges, disputations, uh, and lectures where any are, shippings and navies, houses and gardens of state and pleasure near great cities, armories, arsenals, magazines, exchanges, warehouses, exercises of horsemanship, fencing, training of soldiers, and the like. Then he goes on to say that besides this, one gets to see beautiful towns and the harbors, which uh, deserve all the attention. And there is a lot of detail which gives delight to a person who visits a place having a harbor. And besides these, also there are some very old places which are visited, especially the ruins which stand as a witness to the past attacks of the invaders, and one learns so much from that history. Besides these, he says, when one visits a new place, there are colleges, universities, centers of learning, town halls, stadiums, which give a testimony of the intellectual vigor uh, of that society. And these also should be worth a visit, and people especially learn a lot from visiting these places. Besides, he also talks about the shipping facilities, the naval yards, um, which also deserve to be looked at. Then, other things that are visited are public office buildings, citadels of power, uh, uh, the majestic buildings, parks, recreational open spaces, which speak about the taste and the habits of the people, how they spend their leisure time, the architecture, which gives us an idea about the aesthetic sense of the people of that time and the race. And one learns so much about all these things which are visited and keenly observed. Besides these, a visit to the country's armory and the ammunition storage facilities is also a very enlightening experience. Mm, when one goes abroad, one also visits stock exchanges, warehouses, wholesale markets, and they also have great educational value. Besides these, people also go and visit sports, horse rearing centers, which give us an indication of the ability of the country to use their horses for military and recreational purposes. Every country has its own way of maintaining such uh, horses. Then the other things that are visited are opera houses, which tell us about the culture and the especially of the upper high class society. Then when one visits market, one gets to see the jewelry, which again is a hallmark of that place, and it tells you, because every place has its own unique jewelry, uh, ornaments to show off. So one gets to learn about the jewelry, the clothes, the antiques, and it throws lights upon the culture and the taste of the people. In this way, Bacon says that one needs to visit all these places of interest, and when that person returns from such a visit or from travel, he brings home with him a treasure trove of highly rewarding information and knowledge, and um, can share them with others, with friends, relatives when he comes back home, and it's a great learning experience. We'll continue tomorrow.